introducing Brian. Brian is our presidential candidate for 2008. He's a community activist in Florida, anti-war activist. He's been in left politics for a long while. And right now we're trying to get Brian and Stuart Alexander on as many ballots as possible around the country. He'll be talking more about that. But that process has already started. I was involved in putting Brian on the ballot in Vermont, Jerry too. And then once we've done that, Brian will be going around the country speaking to groups around the country, promoting the Socialist Party, and that's really why we do it. That's why we have presidential candidates. It gives us a chance to go around the country, talk to a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't get a chance to hear us, promote the Socialist Party, promote socialism. And so hopefully all of you can get involved with that from now through November. And here's Brian.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, everybody, for coming. Matt and everybody, Susan, for organizing the event. And I apologize for being late. My plan was to be here Friday night, but I got knocked back a few paces by the airlines. They have different rules, so I showed up about 44 minutes before the flight, and they said the 45-minute was the deadline. And when I came in last night, each person next to me had the same experience I did, and they both had to stay overnight, and one had a family of 4. It was a Vietnamese guy, and he's an engineer here in Detroit, and he had to spend $400 to put his family up, plus $70 to change his airline's fees, just because he came in at 43 minutes before the plane was to take off instead of 45. And I found out from the lady that apparently the conveyor belt in Tampa is slow, so Northwest Airlines has set a new policy of having it 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes. But anyway, that was my experience with the airline industry. And then this morning I went to get some orange juice for breakfast, and there was this guy in front of me, and he took the last cup. And so I ended up with apple juice, and I could walk in the door this morning, and look who's here. They were staying at the same place I was, but we didn't know we were going to the same place. Actually, there was a little orange juice left over, but I like apple juice. Well, Wednesday I was at University of Central Florida, and I gave a speech to the Students for the Democratic Society, a newly formed organization that dates back to the 60s, but went dormant and then recently resurrected itself, along with Code Pink, which is, of course, an anti-war feminist group. And prior to the event of going there, a newspaper wrote an article about how the community better be on the alert because these Reds are coming to town, and we got to keep watch on them. It was like it was dating us back to the 1920s or something like that, or the 1950s. Then after I gave my presentation, there was either a nationwide blog or a regional blog. A guy wrote and he said that he was really shocked that a professor from the university would invite a socialist to the university, and that they had 2 communist groups, Code Pink and SDS, attending. And can you imagine the parents for paying money for their kids to go to this university, and they're being exposed to that? So it's not as modern a world as we think sometimes, and we have to, it's just a long struggle, and just to overcome the image of socialism. So what I try to do is when I speak before groups is to remind them how bad capitalism is, and then just to go over some of the tenets of how socialism compares to capitalism, and remind them about the unemployment and the outsourcing of jobs and the 15 million to 20 million homes that are in receivership, and 50 to 100 million Americans that are without health care. Poverty in the world, with all of our resources, and we're unable to resolve the problems of poverty and crime and just inequality, not only in our country but around the world. And so I talk also about the self-interest that capitalism is based on, and greed, and the profit motive, and that everything is expansion. And if you make money, it's good. If you don't make money, well then, you know, it's no good. But that's the guiding light for capitalists and for our society. And of course, you make it on your own through your personal initiative, your ambition, being aggressive, acquiring material goods, possession, and just kind of beating the other guy and turning out to be number one. So it's not really much concern for your fellow man or your partner or your neighbor or even your countryman. So the features of capitalism really are very negative. They're unchristian. And socialism really, even though you don't have to be you can be an atheist, but there are a lot of religious concepts or ideas or themes that are promoted through socialism, and yet it was started by, I think, a couple of atheists. I think Eugene Debs, one of the co-founders, back in the turn of the 19th century. I don't think he ever put a foot in a church, but he was certainly a Christian in the sense that we know him, or would know what a Christian is. That cared for his fellow man, and nobody can fault us for promoting these ideas of responsibility to your neighbor, of sharing the resources, of producing goods and services that are beneficial to the community and to the society and to the world, and eliminating or reducing products and services that are harmful, that are destroying our natural resources, that are hurting, affecting our air and our water and our just our ability to occupy land because it's being taken over by huge developments. And the fact of growing food. What is it now? 1,400 miles each product is taken from being where it's produced over the roads by corporate trucks. They spend about 400 gallons of gas to do it. And that's why, and we have products that are questionable because of the chemicals that they use. So we have a lot of work to do, the socialists, and I advocate and I tell people that, hey, there's two ways. People say, well, how is socialism going to come about? And one way is electorally, but we really don't think we can achieve that through electoral politics because of the power and the resources that corporate America has. And the establishment, the status quo, is just so hard to beat them. And of course, they bring in their police and their military if they feel threatened. And so one option is violent revolution. Another option is the one that I'm emphasizing the most, is that we're on the verge of collapse. That our economy and our ecology and our society is going to end up collapsing sooner rather than later. And we are blind, absolutely blind to what is happening in this country and around the world. Our universities, our think tanks, our congressional committees, none of them are studying and addressing alternative economic systems in light of the fact that we are on the verge of collapse. Look at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, yesterday or today, they're on the verge of collapse themselves. $30 billion to Wall Street after they told the government, we don't want to be regulated. And who is the government? The government is not a public entity. The federal government is corporate America. That is who runs this country, and that is our government. And they set policy, and they determine where the money goes. So we are at their beck and call. So we have to change, but they're gonna collapse by their own foibles. And they are just doing it right and left now. The health system going to war every other year, whether it be Iraq or Grenada or Panama or now Iran, Pakistan. So, the idea of protecting corporate America, hopefully is going to become more unpopular as the oil prices zoom up and the milk prices zoom up. What is it now? $4.40 in Florida for a gallon. I don't know what it is here in Michigan. Just air and water. So all these things are going to cause us to turn on each other. And we're going to look for alternative, radical changes, radical options. We're going to have no other options. So Americans will be disposed to socialism. All right? They will be ready. And what greater opportunity than this that's going to occur in our lifetime? And we see it coming down the road, and it's sooner rather than